I heard a statistic recently that only 3% of people believe that salespeople are trustworthy. Isn't that interesting? 97% of people distrust salespeople. And if you're listening to this podcast, there are some of you who are in the 3%. Maybe you think that salespeople are trustworthy. But most of the people listening to this podcast also believe that salespeople are not trustworthy. If that's what you believe, it probably makes it difficult for you, for many of you as solopreneurs, to engage in the act of sales because you likely believe that you are a good and trustworthy person, or at the very least, you want to be a good and trustworthy person. And so, why would you then enter into the thing that you believe is not good and not trustworthy in the hands of so many others, which is sales? This is a really interesting conundrum. This actually is one of the reasons why there's so much resistance to sales in the marketplace and in the world in general. Salespeople have a bad rap, well deserved for so many years and decades because so many salespeople have been untrustworthy. So many salespeople have had commission breath and cared about making a sale way more than they cared about the person that they were with, way more than they loved the person across the table. And so they were willing to do things that were dishonest. They were willing to lie, cheat, deceive to make sales. And that is not your story as a salesperson, I'm sure. If you're listening to this podcast, that's not who you are, but that's who other people have been. And so this story that salespeople are untrustworthy is likely a story that has created tremendous resistance for so many good, honest, high integrity, trustworthy people in the world who've found themselves in a position to need to sell something. The truth is, most of you didn't become coaches because you wanted to sell. If you wanted to sell something, there are so many products and services out there that you could simply begin to sell. And you'd probably have a lot less resistance. There'd probably be a lot more ease. You wouldn't have to necessarily even be an entrepreneur if you just wanted to be in sales. Not in the same way that you are as a coach, at least. And yet, here you are, finding yourself as somebody who wants to be a coach, who wants to help people, who wants to serve, likely because of a generous, trustworthy, loving heart for other people. And once you realize or recognize this calling to be a coach, you likely later realized, oh no, I need to make sales if I want to be a successful coach, if I want to make any money, if I want to remain in business. And you may not have realized getting into coaching that a prerequisite to having a client that you coach is that you must make a sale to that client. You must make it easy for them to say yes and join your program. You must collect their payment. And then, and only then, can they actually be a true client who you are coaching. And so what do we do? What do we do with this information? Well, the first thing that we do is we remind ourselves of the truth that the story, maybe an old story playing in your head, that all salespeople are untrustworthy, isn't true. Oftentimes we generalize, we stereotype, we put people in groups. This is part of what's really difficult in today's world, is that so many people are prejudiced against an entire group of people, a certain race, a certain gender, a certain political affiliation, a certain hair color. The list goes on. It's ridiculous. Maybe even people who are fans of a certain thing or have certain hobbies. We just saw, oh, people who like football are also this, or people who play chess are also this. Sometimes the stereotypes are positive. Sometimes you think, oh, people who play chess are really smart. Doesn't necessarily mean that all people who play chess are smart, but that's maybe what we believe. And so human nature is to judge and to stereotype and to group things together because it feels easier that way. It's less complex to just say, oh, well, this group of people, this group of people, that. The people in my town, this. The people I know, that. And we're so quick to say who people are and to do it in large groups. And it's just not reality. It's not true. It's not fair. I want to invite you to be a little bit more curious than that, to maybe let go of that old way of being and to be curious enough to recognize that humans are really complex and we're more than our race or our gender or our political affiliation or our hobby or our family or the town that we grew up in. There's so many more aspects to who we are, and there's so much nuance and intricacy and so much difference from person to person to person. And so if we let go of some of those stereotypes, maybe we could let go of the stereotype around salespeople and recognize that if we don't think all people of a certain race are a certain way, maybe we don't have to believe that all people of a certain profession are a certain way. Maybe we don't have to believe that all salespeople are untrustworthy, or all salespeople are greedy, or all salespeople are deceitful. And if you recognize that sales with you doesn't have to be the way it is with anyone else, then maybe you can have a different story for what sales is in your hands. Maybe sales with other people has been untrustworthy, but maybe you can write a new story that begins with the phrase sales with me is, and fill in the blank with a greater truth. Maybe for you, sales with me is trustworthy. We could start there. I believe that sales with me is trustworthy. I believe that sales with me is honest. I believe that sales with me is generous. I believe that sales with me is kind. I believe that sales with me is fun. I believe that sales with me is fair. I believe that sales with me is leadership. Sales with me feels like coaching with an invitation at the end of it. I believe that sales with me is loving. It actually helps people get more of what they want or become more of who God created them to become. I believe that sales with me is respectful and loving of the other person, whether they buy or not. All of these are my stories. And so I don't have any resistance to sales. And in fact, one of my goals is to change the way people feel about sales. I would love to change the perspective that people have around sales. I'd love for that 97% of people who believe that salespeople are untrustworthy to have their minds changed through conversations with me and through other great high integrity salespeople. I'd love to have a movement around high integrity, loving, good, fair, honest sales that changes the way the marketplace sees sales. Even just a little bit. Can we move the dial on that a little bit? I know we can do so much better. And so for you, I'd love to invite you to rewrite that story about what sales is and to change your own mind, your own perspective, change the soundtrack that's been playing about what sales is for you, and have a more empowering story to remove some of your resistance to being a salesperson in your business. If you are a solopreneur, you are the salesperson in your coaching practice. And that's likely the most important job that you have for your coaching practice until you have a significant amount of clients. Because we cannot help a client, we can't coach a client, we can't lead a client if we have not made the sale first. Not really. And so if we can remove the resistance by telling ourselves a more true and empowering story about what sales with us means and what it is and the kind of person that we're going to be in sales, well, then the next step is to be that person. We were talking in our sales school for coaches call today with some of my clients I work with in that 6-month program. We were talking about passive prospecting today. How can we show up in such a way? We teach 6 P's of passive prospecting. How can we show up in such a way that people will want to come to us and buy? How can we make sales easier? How can we make deal flow easier? And one of the big ways that we do that we recommend doing that, is preparation. Preparation of your skill sets so that people want to find your skill set, want to do business with you. Preparation around your skill sets in business that make it easier for you to make sales and build relationships, etc. That's what these people are doing in sales schools. They're preparing a skill set that's going to make them closing deals and helping people and growing their income and growing their impact so much easier. But there's a third kind of preparation. It's the preparation of your character. Sales become easier to make, and business will find you more consistently and with greater ease when you have prepared your character to be found. When you're a person who's honest, when you're a person of integrity, when you're a person who's trustworthy, you will make more sales with ease. If you're already those things, then great. You just need to remove your own story about sales. You need to remove the resistance that you have. And people won't actually have resistance to you because you are honest and trustworthy and high integrity, and because you are generous, and because you show up and serve well when you sell. You ask great questions, and you make the conversation worthwhile to both sides, whether they buy or not. If you're doing both of those things, if you've removed the resistance now and you've told yourself an empowering story that makes it easy for you to want to engage in sales, and then you've shown up in such an honest and loving and high integrity way that other people enjoy engaging with you in it, and now you have the opportunity to actually step forward with me into that group of people who may be on a mission. It could be a little side mission or a side hustle or a off the beaten path mission for you. I know you've got bigger, more important missions than this for most of you listening to this, but maybe you could join me in the mission of changing the way people feel about sales. Maybe you could be one of those high integrity, loving, service oriented, generous, honest, fair salespeople that begins this shift in the marketplace and in the world of how people view sales. And maybe we can change that statistic of 3% of people thinking that salespeople are trustworthy and the other 97% thinking that they're not. Maybe we could change that through actually changing it, not just changing what people think or believe, but actually being one of the salespeople who's showing up in such a way that creates a new reality for what it feels like to be in a sales conversation. One of the things that we teach in our sales school is how to sell in such a way that it really feels good and it's fun and it's honorable to both sides, whether a sale is made or not. I want you to know that that's possible. I want you to, in fact, know that you can choose for that to be your reality. We got to get this mindset piece right and show up this way to make more sales, to give ourselves the opportunity to coach more people, and to eventually get to the place that sales become more natural and easy for us and for our prospects. I hope this is helpful. I'm praying for you to have a mindset transformation around sales if you need one, and for you to be one of the good people out there changing the way people experience sales and helping more people through your coaching business. God bless you all. Have an amazing week, and I'll talk to you more soon.